What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy.
What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. First and foremost, appreciate all the well wishes. Procedure went well. I'm just going through some longer recovery than expected, but with all of the coaching staff updates, I should be pushing out some new content the rest of this week, and then of course picking up on things as usual. But this is officially Airdrop episode number 2. So I wanted to go back through some of the comments since about mid-January that you guys have been sending in, as well as a voicemail that we received. And we'll just kind of talk through it, right? I'm assuming a lot of this is going to be a bit outdated, but it'll be nice to just kind of go in and revisit some of the thought process that's here. So we had a question: what's the latest on Ben Johnson? When's the interview? Questions about Vrabel, and then, of course, questions about Ben Johnson ultimately not interviewing. So what I'll say on that front, we know that we landed with Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn was undoubtedly one of the hottest candidates. So I think if you start there, it's already a huge success that the New York Jets were able to acquire him, right? You throw on top of that the fact that he wanted to come here, right? You heard in his press conference that the second interview for him wasn't about coming in and trying to mediate any details or anything like that. He wanted to make sure Woody Johnson and company understood that there was going to be a deal here, which makes all of the hoopla and disaster conversations that he left without a official deal being signed after the fact seems a bit laughable. Now, whether we went with Ben Johnson, if we were realistically ever a candidate, or we went with an Aaron Glenn, right? First time head coach in either situation, there were going to be major question marks. Do you feel much better having Ben Johnson, who would have the experience of being able to craft and develop an elite offense? Of course, but I think where Aaron Glenn excels at, in which you don't necessarily get that same indicator with Ben Johnson, based on the rumors that were out there about how he wanted to approach the front office and all those kind of elements. Aaron Glenn is 1000% a leader of men, right? This is a man that has people flying out of the woodworks to come and not only want to work with him, to aid him in whatever degree or capacity available, and generally to just throw out the support, right? And as you know, this will be beaten to death. He has a plethora of elite minds, guys that have 20, 30, 40 plus years of experience that he can go and rely on and look to them for guidance when he says, I'm in a certain predicament, my back's against the wall, I'm between a rock and a hard place. How would you suggest, or do you have similar experience in this situation? And he should be able to really, I want to say that when we find ourselves ultimately having some kind of problem, right? Accountability issues, penalties, somebody that's underperforming or something, he feels like somebody that'll have quick resolutions to a lot of those issues, and not the repeated spills we kind of had under Robert Saleh, such as crediting other teams and, having to revisit tape and all that kind of nonsense. I think he'll put his foot in the ground pretty quickly. Other comments, we had people that were mentioning we're getting played again. I just hope we hold on to Aaron Rodgers for a lower price. Hopefully Jordan gets healthy. We're not getting Vrabel. I'm pulling for Aaron Glenn. I really like Brian Flores. So kind of on the same front, there are some other elements though. I think with Aaron Glenn, you're still most likely looking, when you want to talk about the Aaron Rodgers situation, is maybe a 20% chance Aaron Rodgers stays, right? I think from a cap standpoint, you have to look at it as it's fiscally irresponsible to keep him, unless he does take another major pay cut, right? Which would be, I want to say, what, two times in consecutive years, or 2 times in the last 3 years, whatever the case is. So I think it starts with the cap number, right? Two, if Aaron Rodgers was to return, I would assume there's also going to be stipulations attached to that, right? We need to be 100% team focused, oriented team, which means you can't be going out on the Pat McAfee show every week and spilling tea and dropping content and all this kind of stuff, right? Understanding people have a life outside of football, but within this 18-week season and hopefully us reaching the playoffs, we need you fully invested. No trips to Egypt. I don't care about pre-planned, details and all this kind of stuff. There's going to be a lot of things that I think Aaron Rodgers may at least be open to seeing if he can adjust to the kind of environment, but it may give him similar vibes to what forced him to leave the Packers, right? So I just think it's more likely that he's gone than he stays. On the Jordan Travis front, I do very much so hope that he gets healthy and we get a chance to get a serious look at him this preseason. One of the things I'm most excited about seeing is he's a guy that had a lot of the physical tools, right? Not elite components everywhere. You look at arm strength, for example, but athletically, one of the top quarterbacks in the league already. But two, you wanted him to understand the fundamentals. You wanted him to understand what game preparation looks like. You wanted him to understand practice habits. You wanted him to be able to develop his mental processing and stuff. So, being one of the few guys that literally got a chance to just have a full redshirt year, even though he couldn't get the physical work on the field, I think will produce dividends. Um, what else do we have here? Ricky Cooch, new fan. Great job, my friend. I appreciate it, my boy. Stay tuned, right? We got a lot of content we're going to continue to drop. Appreciate you joining the community. Let me know when you do. I'd like to come in our jet space. I love your knowledge of the team. Good work. Okay, got you. So I know a lot of you guys have been pressing me this year more so than the past to create a social media. It may be in the works, right? I'm not saying this a guarantee. Yes, I'm not saying it's a hard, fast no anymore. But I'll think about it, right? I got to figure out what the whole plan of managing it and what it'll look like if I'm tweeting stuff out or whatever the case is. But it's definitely under consideration. I know it'll make things a lot easier when it comes to some of the collaborations that I'm trying to set up. So I appreciate that. Stay tuned on that front. Breaking news. So we had a couple of comments here. It looks like Truman, lifelong New York Jets fan since Richard Todd, coincidentally a lifelong Notre Dame fan. Can you do an evaluation of the Notre Dame football roster and do a mock draft of Notre Dame football players who would be perfect fits for the Jets? I'm high on Xavier Watts. I need to check out the video later. The snow in Louisiana is helping the Jets. And then, of course, we have the breaking news. Gotcha. So yeah, I think that would be intriguing. Right now, doing a full football evaluation of the team might be a little tough, but obviously they have some draftable candidates. Xavier Watts seems like he's a lock to probably be, a late first round guy, maybe high second. So I doubt we'll be able to pick him up with our second round pick. If so, awesome, right? With that said, I do have some mock draft stuff in the works, so that may be a fun little twist on things that I try to look at, see if we could focus on any Notre Dame players that would make sense at some of the positions we're picking at. And then what's going on, DKB? Just wanted to say if Will Johnson is on the board at pick 7, you do not pass on him. DJ Reed is gone, and Aaron Glenn loves man coverage. Sauce and Will Johnson will feed families. Yeah, so I think it goes without saying here. I'll probably need to start dropping some draft content. And I think it depends, right? You're talking about Sauce Gardner, top 5 pick, so he's making a pretty sizable chunk of money. Then you're talking about adding Will Johnson, a top 10 pick, another chunk size money, right? Then you're talking about probably needing to go out and get a reasonable free agent. And I know Carlton Davis from the Lions is like a name that's floated out there. We'll have to see what other connections may be there for Aaron Glenn. But and then, of course, I'm high on somebody like Stiggers from last year, right? Who I think will take another pretty big leap here. Does he become DJ Reed in year 2? Unlikely, but I do think he can give us strong production. So it's going to be a balance, right? How much of the cap and draft resources do you want to dedicate to one position? It's a vital and a big one for Aaron Glenn and the team for sure. And I think we'd be happy regardless, right? You're talking about probably the best cornerback tandem walking out onto the field. A top five unit immediately, even with him being a rookie, just based on what MC2's been able to do, and probably a top five unit overall when you do look at, Stiggers backing him up and whatever other, resource we pour into that unit. But in the same token, you need to make sure you can continue to make certain strengths a strength. And so if you have a Mason Graham, for example, and you can make that defensive line unit continue to be elite, and therefore requiring you to not necessarily have to rely on the back end coverage as much. There's a lot of different avenues and ways to look at this. So we'll see. I wouldn't be mad at the pick either way, but I would also consider that if man coverage is going to be at a premium, there's going to be guys well into day four that you can look at that maybe aren't as well rounded and can execute on all facets as well as Will Johnson can. But you're going to get that main trait of man coverage that you can look for and try to develop everything else around it. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll finish things out here. We have a voicemail that was sent in. Let's see what our boss here has to say.
Hey, DKB. This is Charles Small from upstate New York. I think a lot of good points. I just put you on there. Exposes the reality of Lawrence. Newmark, hire Connor Rogers. I'm not really big on him. But you make a lot of sense, and I just wanted to let you know. But I think we should run the tape back. Look how many times Rogers has been back there and didn't punch it in. One thing, the offensive coordinator needs to call the plays and not Rogers. If he's committed to this with Aaron Glenn as the new coach coming in, we should be fine. Our defense was skeptical of playing hard because we weren't going anywhere, but we saw flashes. Just a quick comment. On my estimation, I've been watching since Joe Willie won. So it's been a while, and I'm 64 now. I had to think for a minute. God bless us all. Amen. But, yeah, you make some good points. Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate you, coming in and dropping some of your commentary about this. So I know Lance Newmark was a guy that I talked myself into being high on, right? So it is also intriguing that there's a lot of rumors coming out that are kind of bashing him and maybe how much relevance he's actually had in any of the rebuilds, right? One with the Commanders, who as a whole seemed like they definitely would have missed having him in the building. So from a recency standpoint, you do have a entirely new staff, new organization over there with the Commanders that probably would have, taken a bit of a hit there if Newmark was gone. And in that same token, the rumors are advocating that his job with the Commanders isn't, all that. And during his time with the Lions, he was actually fairly underwhelming. So I would assume the truth lies somewhere in the middle, right? As much as what people called out for the potential negatives when Newmark spending over 2 decades with an organization that has done close to little or nothing at all, isn't necessarily looked at in the best light, right? And the spin that I kind of had on it is that he was a guy that continued to be able to make his way up the ladder, right? He didn't receive rapid promotions or anything, but really kind of felt like he took his time, executed over a number of years for each of those promotions. And so after being able to finally be a part of the turnaround and see what that looks like, and then of course the immense success that he had in year one with the Commanders, it seemed like something where he could be a guy that learned from a ton of mistakes, and he'd have a ton of lessons in terms of what not to do here, right? But I can see the allure of not wanting him either. I think on the Muji front, we probably came out ahead, right? He's a guy that's seen more success than failure. So while he may not have as many reference points when things are going left of how to course correct, he's never had to be in that position necessarily to begin with, right? He's had playoff drops, but they've still had generally well-run teams, right? And it's been more coaching than a lack of, player acquisition or anything like that. So I think we went on that front. As far as Aaron Rodgers and stuff like that as well, yeah, fully agree. He's going to have to kind of bend the knee and acquiesce himself to Aaron Glenn and what he wants to do. And I think the press conference fully showed that Aaron Glenn isn't going to be somebody that can kind of just be run over or railroaded, right? This isn't going to be a power struggle situation for Aaron Glenn. This is going to be, this is how I want things done. It's my way or the highway type situation. So fully respected, since it's coming across as respectful as well. And I'm really looking forward to it, right? You don't have to sell me on Tyrod Taylor being the starting quarterback, or if we opt to want to try to go in another direction necessarily with Aaron Glenn. I just really want to see what happens with this offseason, right? The draft for sure, but more so I want to get to OTAs. I want to get to mini camp, training camp, and I want to see how this staff that he's piecing together really comes together, right? You've seen him reach out to different organizations, different varying levels of success, but I think all of these guys are ones that are either uppercomers or they are well versed and well experienced. 20 plus decades in some case when you look at Steve Wilkes. So we'll see how it all plays out. Again, for everyone that chimed in with questions, comments, concerns, etc., I appreciate you all. Looking forward to seeing if we can turn this into a live stream and such at some point. But stay tuned. I keep catch up with you guys again. Peace.